For as long as we have looked up, it was there. A fiery point of light, wandering against the backdrop of the fixed stars. Unlike the other twinkling lights that kept to their patterns night after night, this one moved with a will of its own. It followed a path that was sometimes steady, and sometimes mysteriously, it would slow down, stop, and even move backward for a while, before continuing on its journey. This strange celestial dance captured our ancestors' imaginations, filling them with both awe and a little bit of fear. It was a special kind of star, a wanderer, what the ancient Greeks called a planetes. This celestial wanderer glowed with a distinct, unsettling color. It wasn't the gentle white of Venus or the steady yellow of Jupiter. No, this one was the color of blood, the color of fire, the color of rust. It was an angry-looking dot in the cosmic ocean. It's no surprise, then, that so many different cultures associated this particular light with conflict, with chaos, and with masculinity. The Babylonians, masters of the night sky, called it Nergal, their god of fire and destruction. The ancient Egyptians saw it as Horus the Red, a protector god, while the Hindus knew it as Mangala, born from the sweat of Lord Shiva and linked to the god of war, Kartikeya. The Romans, who inherited so much of their cosmology from the Greeks, gave it the name we use today. They saw that blood-red glint in the sky and named it Mars, after their own formidable god of war. He was the father of Romulus and Remus, the legendary founders of Rome itself, a figure of immense power and ferocity. The very presence of Mars in the night sky was seen as an omen, a sign that could foretell the coming of battles, of strife, and of great upheaval. The planet's brightness and its strange looping path were watched closely by priests and astrologers, who tried to decipher the messages sent by their powerful celestial deity. This connection to war and chaos wasn't just a Roman idea. It was a common thread woven through the tapestry of human mythology across the globe. The planet's reddish hue was a universal symbol, a cosmic warning sign that transcended language and culture. That color, so evocative and powerful, was the first great mystery of Mars. Why was it red? What was this wandering star made of? For thousands of years, the answers were confined to the realm of myth and storytelling. Science had not yet forged the tools needed to peel back the layers of legend and see the planet for what it truly was. But the questions were there, waiting. For millennia, our understanding of Mars was limited by the power of the human eye. It was just a point of light, albeit a fascinating and unusually colored one. But then, a revolution happened. In the early 17th century, a new invention, the telescope, turned our gaze to the heavens with newfound power. It was like putting on a pair of cosmic spectacles. Suddenly, the planets were not just points of light anymore. They were worlds. Galileo Galilei, the great Italian astronomer, was one of the first to point his crude spyglass at Mars. He couldn't see much detail, but he confirmed that it was a sphere, a globe, just like our own Earth. The age of scientific Martian observation had begun. As telescopes improved, growing larger and more powerful, Mars slowly began to give up its secrets. Astronomers like Christian Huygens in the 17th century were able to see dark patches on its surface. By carefully watching these patches move, he was able to calculate the length of a Martian day, and he found it was astonishingly similar to our own, just a little over 24 hours. This was a profound discovery. It suggested that Mars was not just a rock, but a dynamic, rotating world. It even had polar ice caps, just like Earth, that astronomers could see waxing and waning with the Martian seasons. The idea of Mars as a sister planet to Earth started to take hold. This brings us to the famous, or perhaps infamous, canals of Mars. In the late 19th century, an Italian astronomer named Giovanni Schiaparelli used a powerful new telescope to observe the planet. He described seeing a dense network of straight lines on the surface, which he called canali, an Italian word that simply means channels. But when this was translated into English as canals, it fired the public's imagination. Canals imply builders. They suggest intelligent life, a civilization purposefully moving water across a drying planet. This idea was championed by the American astronomer Percival Lowell, who built an entire observatory dedicated to mapping these Martian canals. Lowell's vision of a dying Martian civilization created a cultural phenomenon. Stories of Martians like H.G. Wells' The War of the Worlds became incredibly popular. But as telescopes got even better, a different picture emerged. The canals, it turned out, were an optical illusion. They were a result of the human brain's tendency to see patterns, connecting faint, blurry, unrelated features into straight lines. There were no great Martian engineers. The canals were a myth. But this myth served a purpose. It fueled our desire to go there, to see for ourselves, to replace imagination with observation, and finally learn the truth about the red planet. The dawn of the space age in the mid-20th century gave us a new way to explore. We were no longer bound to our planet, looking up through a thick, shimmering atmosphere. We could now send robotic explorers, our eyes and hands, across the vast emptiness of space to visit these other worlds directly. Mars was an obvious and compelling target. The first attempts by the Soviet Union and the United States were fraught with failure. Space travel is hard. But in 1965, NASA's Mariner 4 spacecraft successfully flew past Mars, sending back the very first close-up pictures of another planet. The images were grainy and stark, revealing a cratered, moon-like surface. It was a bit of a letdown for those hoping for canals and cities, but this was just the beginning. The missions that followed painted a much more complex and fascinating picture. The Mariner 9 mission in 1971 was a game-changer. Arriving during a planet-wide dust storm, it waited patiently for the dust to clear. And when it did, the view was spectacular. It revealed gigantic volcanoes, including Olympus Mons, a shield volcano so vast it would cover the entire state of Arizona and stands nearly 3 times the height of Mount Everest. It also discovered Valles Marineris, a system of canyons that dwarfs our own Grand Canyon, stretching for thousands of kilometers across the planet's face. Mars wasn't a dead, moon-like world after all. It was a world of epic geology. The next great leap came with the landers. In 1976, the twin Viking landers successfully touched down on the Martian surface. For the first time, we saw the landscape from the ground, a rocky reddish desert under a pale pink sky. The Vikings were pioneers, scooping up Martian soil and analyzing it in their onboard laboratories, searching for signs of life. While their experiments gave ambiguous results that are still debated today, they provided a wealth of data about the Martian environment. They confirmed the thin atmosphere, composed mostly of carbon dioxide, and the extreme temperature swings between day and night. They gave us our first weather reports from another world. Since the Vikings, a fleet of increasingly sophisticated orbiters, landers, and rovers have continued the exploration. Rovers like Sojourner, Spirit, Opportunity, Curiosity, and Perseverance have become our robotic field geologists, trundling across the rusty terrain for years. They have uncovered undeniable evidence that Mars was once a very different place. They found ancient riverbeds, deltas, and lake beds. They analyzed rocks that could only have formed in the presence of liquid water. The story of Mars was rewritten. It was once a warmer, wetter world with a thicker atmosphere, and perhaps, just perhaps, it could have supported life. The search for that answer continues to drive us. The more we learn about Mars, the more Earth-like it seems to have been in its distant past. And that raises the biggest question of all. Could it have a future with us? The dream of sending humans to Mars is no longer just science fiction. It is a tangible goal for space agencies and private companies around the world. The challenges are immense, of course. The journey itself would take many months, exposing astronauts to the harsh radiation of deep space. And once there, they would have to contend with a thin, unbreathable atmosphere, extreme cold, and the fine, pervasive dust that gets into everything. It is the ultimate survival challenge. But the ambition is there. We are already laying the groundwork, testing the technologies needed for such a monumental journey. We are developing more powerful rockets, designing habitats for the Martian surface, and figuring out how to use the planet's own resources, a concept called in situ resource utilization. For instance, we could potentially extract water from the ice at the poles or underground, and we could use the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere to create oxygen for breathing and methane for rocket fuel to make the return trip. Making a Mars colony self-sufficient is the key to a long-term human presence there. Why go to all this trouble? The reasons are as varied as they are compelling. For science, it is the ultimate field trip, a chance to search for past or even present life on another world, which would fundamentally change our understanding of our place in the universe. For the spirit of exploration, it is the next logical step, the next giant leap for mankind. It pushes the boundaries of our technology and our courage. And for the long-term survival of our species, some argue it is a necessity. Making humanity a multiplanetary species with a foothold on another world would be the ultimate insurance policy against any catastrophe that might befall Earth. So we stand at a remarkable moment in history. The wandering red star of our ancestors, the subject of myth and legend, is now within our reach. We have mapped its surface, analyzed its soil, and tasted its thin air with our robotic proxies. The next generation of explorers may not watch Mars through a telescope. but through the window of a spaceship as they make their final approach. The journey from seeing Mars as a god of war to seeing it as a potential new world is one of the greatest stories of human curiosity. And the next chapter, the one where human footprints are pressed into the red dust, is waiting to be written.